The truth about eternal punishment. No one is in hell. Welcome to another episode, class, lesson, priest Genesis mode. Big G's, not the little ones. Here to feed the little ones. We're going to be talking about eternal punishment, hell. What is it? Is it true, or is it just another man-made doctrine of a white supremacist cult known as Christianity and other false religions as well? What does the Bible say? And during this class, it's going to be very imperative to go into words, go into ancient manuscripts, so you can understand through modernization and man-made influence, eisegesis, imposing paganism and heathenistic ideologies into our Bible. It's a problem. And now today you have people thinking that there is this place underground in hell with Satan dressed in an all-red suit with a pitchfork, and you're just alive and burning down there in the middle of the earth with a liquid hot magma.
Don't ask. I said don't ask. I said
that is the farthest from biblical truth. So today we're going to go into the Old Testament concept of it, because that's where it starts. That's the foundation. Then you can understand what the New Testament concept of hell is. It couldn't have changed. You mean to tell me that hell was something else in the Old Testament, then it changed to something else in the New Testament? No, the Most High God is not inconsistent and given to change in that way. That is a major variable. So let's get right into it, y'all. I'm going to share my screen. First, we look at hell in the Old Testament. You can just do a word search on hell. You'll see it's first mentioned in Deuteronomy 32 and 22 when you go to the English word hell. It says, "For a fire is kindled in my anger, and shall burn unto the lowest hell, and shall consume the earth with her increase, and set on fire the foundation of the mountains." What is this talking about? The Most High God creating a fire so big that's going to burn even to the fire in hell? No, that sounds crazy. Stop going to church.
I'm not gay no more.
So let's take a look at what this word means before we go to some of the references of this word. And then we'll go into the New Testament of it. So the Old Testament word for hell in the Greek is Sheol. Sheol, and what does it mean? It means simply the grave. How did we get a word in Hebrew that means the grave to today people saying that it's this place underneath the earth with Satan in a pitchfork where you burn forever and you're yelling and screaming? How did that happen? I'll tell you how. Outside influences, man-made doctrine, traditions, and dogmatizing the text. That's a new word that the Hebrew Israelites, mainly us, Genesis, big G's, not the little ones, Christian apologists and theologians dogmatize the text, right? It just means underworld, grave. That's the usage, but it literally just means grave. And how do we know? We know that context supersedes etymology. So, and then it shows you the New Testament equivalent is going to be how they're trying to use it is Hades. We're going to talk about that. But context supersedes etymology. So how is the word used? So the first time we see the Hebrew word Sheol is Genesis 37 and 35. "And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him. But he refused to be comforted, and he said, For I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning." What does this mean? That he's going to dig up, get a shovel, a Hebrew shovel, dig himself a hole all the way down to where Satan dwells? No. They understood that Sheol just meant the grave. It's where your body goes to the dirt, and then they understood that you go back to the Father, to the spirit world. We'll talk about that in a second. But if we're dealing with the Old Testament Hebraic concept of Hell is just the grave where your body goes to the dirt. How did it get so mythological? By pagan influences trying to be introduced into the text. Genesis 42:38 says, you shall go bring my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave, to the grave, to the grave, sorrow to the grave, quickly into the grave. Now look at this, Numbers 16:33. They and all that pertain to them went down alive into the pit. This is the word for hell here. This is the word Sheol. So they just, the earth swallowed up, the earth opened up to where you can see in hell with Satan, and they just fell in there. No, that's quite ridiculous. And this is why everybody's leaving the Christian church in droves. Just stop. We believe the Bible, not Christianity. That's the problem. The Bible is not saying what Christianity is teaching. Christianity is not predicated on the Bible. So now, let's look at the New Testament equivalent for Sheol and how it got so so shrouded and twisted into what we believe today as this place underneath the earth where you go and burn forever. And there's actually a God there. Now, Christians believe that there's only one God. Christians believe there's only one God, right? Yet, but if you believe that there's an actual place called Hades, then you would have to say that there's more than one God, because Hades is the name of a Greek god. So this is another reason why we strongly believe, with proof, I did a presentation on this, that the New Testament was not written in Greek. Although the oldest ancient manuscripts we have is Greek, but those are not the originals. Just like the oldest Old Testament we have is the Greek Septuagint, but we know that the Old Testament was not written in Greek. So why would Jesus Christ himself be going around telling people, hey, you know what? If you keep doing evil and you die, you're going to go to Hades. This is a Greek god. This cannot be refuted or disputed. You're going to go to this Greek god down in the underworld. They're going to be like, what? We believe there's only one God, Yahweh. So it just doesn't make sense. Now look at you. Now sometimes they'll be honest. Later it says, in the later use of this word, the grave, death, hell, Orcus, the netherworld, the realm of the dead. Name Hades or Pluto, the god of the lower regions. I think his dad was like Kronos or Zeus or something like that. Like, that don't make no sense, telling some Jews of the first century who are zealots and Old Testament fanatics, Mosaic fanatics, that when they die, they're finna go to this Greek god. Doesn't make any sense. So the word that should have been here, if the Messiah was speaking Greek and or Aramaic, would have been Sheol. And so this is the problem with translating the Hebrew scriptures into Greek. You lose things in translation. You get a lot of, when you deal with lexicology and morphology, formation shifts and semantic shifts and word transformations, you get different meanings. You get outside influence plug in there, especially when you deal with other words in the New Testament like phosphorus. You see that is equivalent to Lucifer, and phosphorus is a Greek god as well. Why is that even in the New Testament? And why is that being correlated to Christ? When you read Peter and it said phosphorus will rise in his heart. It's another reason why we believe, why would he be speaking these Greek terms of idolatry to the people of the first century? It makes no sense. So he would have been saying, you're going to the grave. That is what should be there. So the start of this eternal punishment and Hades, this underworld where there's a God down there waiting on you, is because of Greek mythological influence of the New Testament. That's just a fact. So if there is, here's the add insult to injury. if there was a place called hell where there's a Greek god named Hades down there and you're burning forever because of your judgment, then why would there need to be a resurrection for the wicked? Let me drop a bomb for myself. If there was a place called hell where if you're a bad person, a wicked person, sinful, you go there forever and you're burning alive, then why would there need to be a resurrection of the wicked when Christ comes back? I thought you got your judgment already. Now you get to take a breather from hell, get some air freshener, smell the green trees and oxygen, and then he puts you into the lake of fire. We're going to get to the lake of fire too, because you might say, all right, priest, well, if there's no hell and it just means the grave, then what about the lake of fire? We'll talk about that. So let's go to John 5. In John chapter 5, and this is going to be, I'm going to close in on this. In John chapter 5, if we start at verse 28, it says, marvel not at this, for the hour is coming in the which that all that are in the graves shall hear his voice. Who? The Messiah's voice when he comes back. And shall come forth. This is the resurrection of the righteous and of the wicked. They that have done good unto the resurrection of life, and they that have done evil unto the resurrection of damnation. So if you died before Christ comes back and you're already in hell burning forever, why would you need to be taken from hell? You're in the line, the judgment day, before the white throne. You get to get some fresh air, then get put into the lake of fire. It just doesn't make any sense. It's laughable. It's a joke. It's preposterous. Okay? So the question is, all right, where do we go when we die? If there's no place called hell that burns, where we burn forever, where do we go when we die? It's very simple. The Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes 3:21, who knows the spirit of a man that goeth upward? It's not talking about just a righteous person. And don't get heaven confused with going up to the spirit world. Remember, there's the fourth dimension where the Most High dwells, and then there's the kingdom of heaven that's going to be on earth that is not here yet. Please do not conflate or convolute. So when I say, the Bible says the spirits go up to heaven, all spirits, you might say, wait, so a wicked person gets heaven? That's not the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven will be on earth and has not been established yet. We can prove that easily. So the Bible's saying that the spirits go upward, and the spirit of the beast that go downward to the earth, they just disintegrate. Now our bodies disintegrate, but our spirits go up to the Father. And then he doubles down in Ecclesiastes 12:7. Ecclesiastes 12:7. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. So your body goes to the dead. You go up there to the Most High, to the spiritual realm. So no, there is no Old Testament precedent for when you die, you go to the middle of the earth and you burn forever. That came later when the translators of the New Testament, which it was written predominantly in Hebrew. I'll leave a link in the description box to prove that, to that presentation and those sources and facts. But when they're translating it, that's what happens. You get Greek mythology, because that's all the Greek language is, riddled in Greek mythology. And these influences, so that the Christianity can be so universal, they had to put these pagan concepts into the Greek New Testament so that it could grow as a major religion, and the pagans would accept it by saying, oh, we can identify because we're here in Hades, we're here in Tartarus, we're here in the Greek god Nike, we're here in Phosphorus. All of that is found in the Greek New Testament. This is why we know, and we can prove, that majority of the New Testament was written in Hebrew. Why would some monotheistic Mosaic fanatics speak like that and teach that? It doesn't make any sense. So what happens is, according to the Bible, your spirit goes up to the Father. Then you come back down in this a biblical cycle called regeneration. Oh, really? That's not in the Bible? Yes, it is. In Malachi chapter 4, verse 5, it says, "Behold, I will send you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord." Elijah was taken up. Now, according to the Messiah, in Matthew 11, verse 12, it says, "And from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffered violence, and the violent take it by force. For all the prophets in the law prophesied unto John, and if you will receive it, this is Elijah, which was for to come." So according to the red letter, words of Messiah, he's saying Elijah was taken up, but he was born again as John the Baptist through John's mother and father, Zechariah and Elizabeth. He didn't say, oh, he's going to be like, he's going to kind of resemble him. He's going to walk after the same path. No, he said, this is Elijah that was prophesied to come. And God said it at his own, I will send you Elijah, not somebody like Elijah. In Deuteronomy 18:18, it tells Moses, I'm going to send you somebody like you. He could have said that, but he didn't. He said, no, I'm going to send Elijah. Now, oh, but what Luke says in the spirit, Luke is not an eyewitness to what Christ said. Now, am I saying Luke was wrong? No. But somebody could go there and say, oh, it says kind of in the spirit. If you have the same spirit, you are that person, period. But the fact is this is an eyewitness account of what the Messiah said in Matthew 11. And Malachi 4 corroborates that. So, but what about eternal punishment? Because we do see some everlasting punishment. We see that phraseology in the Bible. Will there be an everlasting punishment? Well, I'll tell you one thing. It has nothing to do with the false concept of hell. It has everything to do with the lake of fire. So now we're going to transition into the lake of fire after we just dispelled this whole fake hell doctrine. So and I want to say this too, so we can just live evil and then be regenerated and start new. No, you have to pay for what you did in your past. Galatians 6 and 7, Ecclesiastes as well. Like you pay for what you did in your last life, or else why do we consider some innocent people getting this harsh tribulation and judgment? You got to think about that. So what is this everlasting punishment then if there's no eternal punishment, priest? It's very simple. Now we're segueing into the lake of fire. But Matthew 25 and 46 does say, and these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal. So is this saying that there's a place that'll be after the coming of the Messiah where there's eternal punishment? Or is this hyperbolic? Is it figurative? Well, let's get some proof text. Because you're going to see in Revelation 14 that if you take the mark of the beast, in verse 11 it says, and the smoke of their torment ascended up forever and ever. And they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. So either we have a contradiction with the New Testament and the Old Testament, or this has to be maybe hyperbolic language and is dealing with something being everlasting, but not necessarily an everlasting punishment. Let me explain what I'm talking about. In Revelation 20, we have the lake of fire. Revelation 20 and 13. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it. And death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them. So that means that's the resurrection of the wicked and the righteous. This has nothing to do with hell. As you see, this is the resurrection. They're not coming from hell. They're getting resurrected from the grave bodily. And then it says, and death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. So the lake of fire which you're going to see if when we read Revelation, is on earth. The lake of fire is on earth, is being seen on earth. Mass destruction and mass death are going to be cast into the lake of fire from those who were wicked, who when Christ comes back, who are alive and wicked, and then the resurrection of the wicked, they get cast into the lake of fire. But do they themselves burn forever, or does the fire burn forever? Are they in torment forever, or does the fire burn forever? What does the Old Testament prophecy say in which John is drawing from, and the Spirit is giving him the same as it was given in the Old Testament? Isaiah 66 clarifies that it's not the bodies that are in the lake of fire, which will be on earth burning forever, that it is the fire that'll burn forever as a memorial, as a reminder. Now look at this. And now some may question, is this fire going to be forever because it's supernatural? Or is this fire going to be for a long time? In Isaiah 66, verse 22, we notice this kingdom connotation. Why? Because it says, for as the new heavens and the new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, saith the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. Future prophecy has not happened. Verse 24 is key. And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses. Let me blow that up for y'all. Carcasses. Not people who are alive yelling and screaming. Carcasses of the men that transgress me. For their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorring unto all flesh. A reminder of what not to do. But this is carcasses. They got put in the lake of fire, they died, and their carcasses remained. The worms will always be feeding on carcasses there. Understand that? So that gives us understanding of what the New Testament authors are drawing from. This isn't Isaiah trying to figure out what's happening. One can argue, oh, Isaiah didn't understand, but now the New Testament authors, they understand. No, this is God speaking. This isn't Isaiah interpolating, exegeting. This is God speaking what's going to happen. Or he's a liar. We wouldn't dare do that. Now, Mark chapter 9 and verse 44 does talk about what Isaiah 66 is saying, where it says, where their worm dieth not and the fire is not quenched. So Mark 9 does, in verse 48, it says the same thing, where their worm dieth and the fire is not quenched. So Mark does give the same understanding as Isaiah 66 and saying that it is going to be carcasses there, not people burning alive forever there. In Revelation 15, which I thought I had this pulled up, you will see that the lake of fire is on earth. Well, Isaiah 66 tells you that this is a lake of fire here on earth. But in Revelation 15, you'll see verse 2, it says, and I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand upon the sea of glass, having harps in their, having the harps of God. So those who get the victory are ascended above the destruction underneath, and they see the fire underneath them. And there's other proof texts and precepts to prove that the lake of fire will be on earth. Now, the argument of, is this supernatural fire, or is this fire caused by thermonuclear destruction? And we can see both, because there will be a type of lake of fire over in the land, according to Isaiah 66. When they come to worship, they're going to see that. But then you have the lake of fire here in Babylon. You do have the lake of fire in Babylon, which would be America. All indicators, all signs point to Mystery Babylon, the last kingdom, the hegemony of the world, where the Israelites would be under subjugation, being America and its provinces. being that lake of fire. This is what Revelation says. Well, how is America going to be destroyed? How is Babylon going to be destroyed? By fire, by its enemies. The Bible says the 10 horns will hate the whore and burn her with fire. That's thermonuclear destruction. But does that mean it's going to be so hot with fire that it's never going to rain? I'm speaking specifically about the lake of fire here in America, Babylon. That is, it's never going to rain to put the fire out. So when you deal with this everlasting fire, it doesn't have to necessarily, for the lake of fire here in America, mean that it's eternal fire. Why? Because it says that Sodom and Gomorrah, when you deal with Sodom and Gomorrah, it talks about eternal fire as well. Or I believe so. If not, it says eternal destruction, and that no one would able to be living there from generation to generation for perpetuity. But when you deal with everlasting, everlasting could be 1,000 years. Everlasting could be 2,000 years. I'm going to show you guys Philo and Josephus saying that Sodom and Gomorrah was still on fire during their time. That's the 1st century AD. That would mean roughly 2,000 years. Sodom and Gomorrah is still smoldering and smoking because of what happened. And not only is that a testament to God's judgment, but it's a faith booster to let you know we only have this story of Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible. And this is another, contributing factor to the divinity of the book and the power of this book that we have called the Bible, and it being a prophetic book unlike no other. And this story is corroborated with Sodom and Gomorrah through Philo and Josephus in the 1st century, where they say it's still basically on fire in certain places and smoking and smoldering. What a faith booster that our God is real, and that happened. I'm going to go to, this is from the Genesis Varsity Online Academy, specializing in Hebrew apologetics. This was a course that I put together called the Amazing Bible Archaeology, where we're proving these biblical events actually happened. And hit me, Deacon at Genesis144.com, Deacon at Genesis144.com to get into these classes, man. Learn how to defend the gospel. So Josephus on Sodom and Gomorrah. We take a look here. The first mention Josephus makes of Sodom is in his Jewish War, written about 80 CE, as he recounts the capture of Jericho in 68 CE by the Roman general Vespasian. Josephus makes a digression to describe the geography of the area in the Dead Sea. So he says, adjacent to it, the Dead Sea, is the land of Sodom. In the days of old, a country blessed in its produce and its wealth of its various cities, but now all burnt up. Now they were going here and seeing this, and people they knew, their contemporaries, were going to Sodom and seeing this, corroborating a 2,000-year-old story. So this is why we can say, okay, it says eternal fire or everlasting fire. It doesn't have to mean literally or technically eternal. It can mean for thousands of years, as we see in Sodom and Gomorrah. It was consumed by. Now it says, look at this. It says, and in fact, vestiges of the divine fire and faint traces of 5 cities are still visible. Let me drop a bomb. Gotta drop a bomb. Now, and he keeps going. He keeps going on it. He says, I have seen this pillar which remains to this day. So he talks about Lot's wife being turned to a pillar of salt. And he says he has seen the pillar of salt which remains this day. And I think our elders went over there and seen this as well. Now let's talk about Philo. Philo says on Abraham, section 133 and 134, he talks about Sodom and Gomorrah. Then he says in section, he keeps going to talk about how Sodom and Gomorrah was all burnt up. Okay. Hold on. It was destroyed by fire. Okay, so Philo says, I'm gonna find it here. He says it's still on fire in his day. That is not happening for a long time. Coin trees, excellence. Proof. Give me a second. Okay. Fire was destined evil, for it was necessary to calamities. But since the portion was okay, we're gonna keep going. For the fire and lightning was okay. Here we go. Look at this in section 141 on Abraham, and the most evident proof of this is to be found in what is seen to this day. For the smoke which is still emitted, and the sulfur which men dig up there are a proof of the calamity which befell that country, while almost a conspicuous proof of the ancient fertility of the land is left in one city and in the land around it. Wow. So according to Philo, in section 141 on Abraham, he tells us that it's still smoking and on fire in his day. Wow. So when the Most High talks about an eternal punishment for Sodom, it doesn't necessarily have to mean eternity, literally, but for millenniums and millenniums. So when we look at the everlasting punishment of Babylon, America, and the lake of fire, we can see that it could be for thousands of years that this place is on fire and smoldering. And also, too, he could be speaking about Isaiah 66 as well, where this seems to be a supernatural fire over around the land of Israel that'll be there, where those that transgress will get put in there as a reminder for the nations not to go against the Most High's judgments. So with that being said, y'all, I enjoyed this myself, putting this together. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. We're on to the next, giving all praises, honor, and glory to our Heavenly Father, Yahweh. We do so by Shema Mashiach Yahweh Shai. Shalom.